Summer is here, and remakes are in the air. As the whispers of a Sonic Heroes remake float around, all of the Sonic tubers have flocked to make their top 10 remake videos, or talk about how they'd remake Sonic Heroes. All are wonderful videos I might dabble my toes in at some point, but not today. No, today I'm here to disturb the very nature of the community by presenting an idea that'll probably piss off a lot of people, but as a YouTuber, I was called to make this video, because today, I'm not looking at a remake, but instead, a reimagining. Of what? Well, of the very title that redefined gaming for the blue blur, Sonic Adventure. Now, what makes this so controversial? Well, this isn't a modern title. No, in fact, this reimagining is something I like to dub as a classic Sonic adventure. Alright, get all those eye rolls out, because I need you to buckle up for the ride that is this game proposal. But, before I get into the game itself, it's important to discuss how I got to where I am with this proposal, and it all starts back on a little game called Sonic Generations. Not only is it a goat of a game, but it did something really drastic that changed the trajectory of Sonic games forever. And that was making the distinction between classic and modern Sonic. Where originally modern Sonic was nothing more than the evolution of the character's design, now being retooled as the older counterpart to the black-eyed hedgehog that 90s kids grew up with. What's so important about this change, however, is that the classic Sonic we know today is not the same classic Sonic of the 90s. And I don't mean that in the sense of new writers changing his character or anything like that, but I mean it as classic Sonic is now his own fully fledged character. Because classic Sonic being brought to Generations has disturbed the timeline. It had made the branch of Sonic Mania, his appearance in Forces, and now Sonic Superstars, something canonically brought up in Forces as Tails calls out that he is a Sonic from another dimension. And modern Sonic jokingly saying it's been generations since seeing classic Sonic. Guess it wasn't much of a joke. Now, I know a recent TailsTube video made it clear that modern Sonic had gone through the events of Superstars.
Speaking of all this history, aren't we coming up on the anniversary of our adventure on North Star Island?
Oh yeah! I wonder if we can invite...
However, I think there's one difference between the game we play compared to modern Sonic's own journey, and that's the drop dash. Now stick with me on this one, because if you thought the road was bumpy, you haven't seen nothing yet. The drop dash was famously introduced in Sonic Mania, and has been a reoccurring staple ever since. Now I have an in-game theory on how this move came to be, as in the little bit of story that we got with Sonic Generations, there was a small arc where modern Sonic showed classic Sonic his air dash. A move that classic Sonic tried copying at the end of the story before going home.
It was great teaming up with you. Hope you learned a few tricks that'll help you out in the future. I mean, the past. You know what I mean.
I believe this was the start of what I like to call the drop dash timeline, where a classic Sonic who saw one of modern Sonic's moves early in his life took to practicing before he even got the basics of dashing down. So classic Sonic, now working with incomplete information he wasn't supposed to have yet, ended up mixing the dash into a spin dash, leading to the birth of drop dashing. Now, I hear what a lot of you are thinking. We've seen modern Sonic using the drop dash in Sonic Frontiers. However, I actually believe that this helps prove my theory, because this is the first instance we've ever seen modern Sonic using the drop dash. Something he could have learned after working together with our drop dash classic Sonic during the events of Sonic Forces, now adding a new move to his arsenal. So, I ranted to you about my branching timeline theory. Now how does that come into play with our Sonic Adventure reimagining? Well, now that we have two branching timelines for our Sonics, we have the opportunity of watching as our drop dash Sonic goes from 2D to 2.5D all the way to 3D. As many people know, when Sonic Adventure was still being constructed, the game originally used models of classic characters until they made the change to what we now deem modern Sonic. So what this game would prove to do is bring classic Sonic into the 3D space, blending aspects from modern Sonic games while keeping to his own original playstyle. So what ungodly amalgamation am I presenting to you? Well, we start with a roster of Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Mighty, Ray, and Trip. We'll start with the same story structure of Sonic Adventure, where each character goes through their own arc, intertwining into other characters' stories, starting with Sonic and unlocking characters as you meet them in the adventure. Now, when it comes to the levels, each character would have their own level themes based off of their moves, but where the levels adjust to compensate for more broken powers of characters like Tails and Knuckles, so that you're challenged in different ways with each story. Something similar to what I've discussed in the second part of my Sonic Adventure analysis series, something I highly suggest checking out. Now, outside of the levels, this game would have 7 hub worlds that lead each character to their own boss battle. These hub worlds would take inspiration from Sonic Frontiers, where you need to explore and traverse them to get to levels and bosses, while also getting to talk to NPCs, which would provide a variety of side quests so that the open zones are more fleshed out and feel more rewarding to explore. Some of these hub world themes would include a Pirate's Bay that would lead to a fight with Bean on a pirate ship, where you have to avoid bombs that over time destroy the ship, leading to ways you could fight back. Another would be a casino-themed city, kind of like Las Vegas, where a boss of card-dealing Metal Sonic, who would pay ode to the classic Sonic cartoons of the 90s by dressing up as different employees of a casino as he changes his attack patterns. Next up would be the Haunted Hills, that has a mansion in the middle, leading to a ghost chase with the Tails doll, where you're tasked in a hide-and-seek styled boss, where you need to find him enough times to deal damage, because failure to do so would scare your character into stone. And there'd be so many more themes that would fit into the classic and Dreamcast era of the Sonic series, while the bosses would all be evolutions of classic characters, such as other inclusions like Fang and Bark, as they and others are being controlled by the new villain of the game, a robot created by Dr. Robotnik, that has been constructed with an elusive stone that has strange properties to control people's minds through manipulation, with some other tricks up its sleeve. Now, when it comes to the level design, there's a new philosophy that would come into play, being a more momentum-heavy playstyle, where the zones are still filled with loops and hills, but these are used in a more open style, allowing you to create your own paths forward, using characters' movesets to their advantage so you can create different skips depending on how skilled you are using a character. These characters would all play similar to how they handle in their 2D games, such as Sonic remaining as he does with no homing attack, but instead having his drop dash and the ability to use shield powers, which will change up how you approach using the character depending on the shield you have active. The only character that would receive a big change would be Amy, where her moveset would take notes from Sonic Advance to differ her playstyle up from Sonic, seeing that her recent inclusions have lacked inspiration. All this leading up to a smaller 8th open zone that'd lead to a climactic final boss with Super Sonic, where this all-stakes battle comes to close, letting you freely explore the zones with a newly unlocked super state that all characters would be able to access, as well as New Game Plus, where bosses would be available to fight as any of the playable characters, instead of the ones the story called for, as well as many other new side quests and objectives. Now, I know that this is quite the branch from what Sonic Adventure was, but that was modern Sonic's branch into the 3D space. This is Classic's branch, and I don't want to try to hold the game back with the standards of 3D gaming in the 90s. This is a different timeline with a different growth into the 3D space. So it would go to show that the approach should look different from what our main timeline went through. But with that, I conclude my pitch for the reimagined classic Sonic Adventure. A different idea that I believe could lead to some fun and unique gameplay, as well as a ton of replayability. Do you think there's room for this 3D Sonic game? Or do you think classic Sonic should be dead and never touched again? Tell me what you think in the comments, and subscribe while you're down there to help me continue to provide you with content for many years to come. With all that said, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.